And we're live right here. And hi.
Hey, how you doing?
Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is James Burk. I'm the Director of Information Technology for the Mars Society, and I'm really excited to be part of your program today.
So, the Mars Society has been going on for 22 years, wasn't it? Right? Uh,
1998, yep.
uh, and right there was Robert Zubrin, who I interviewed a couple, 2, 3 weeks ago. Uh, and there was this book, The Case for Mars, which is an amazing book that just describes how to get to Mars cheaply, most easy way to get to Mars, right? And hopefully come back, of course. Uh, so how long have you been involved with the Mars Society?
Yeah, I read that book when it came out back in the mid 90s, and I was driving my car to Seattle from Florida here in the US because I was starting a job at Microsoft, and I was reading the book when I had breaks. And when I got to Seattle, I learned about the Mars Society starting up. And so I joined, and I've been part of it ever since. But yeah, I remember Dr. Zubrin was working with him at the very beginning. He helped us. He sponsored us to go speak at a National Science Teachers Convention and have a table and talk about humans to Mars back in the late 90s.
So actually, quite early in the Mars Society, you've been involved, right?
That's correct.
Uh, so you're the IT director. You make all the like right here. We're seeing the research station.
Yep.
There is a research station out there, which is it always active, or is it only in some periods people are using it? Or
So no, it's usually runs. That's the Mars Desert Research Station in Utah, and it usually runs from October to May. That's our field season. We had to cut it short last year because of COVID, and so we're starting up actually in about a couple weeks. We're going to have a crew back there again. We'll run until about May, and then we'll start up again in the fall. And I'm excited because I'm actually going to command a crew in December this year.
wow. So this is actually many years, and many crews have been involved. Have you been organizing like the IT stuff that goes around that, like people connect? What's the tech happening? What are people
Yeah.
doing?
So out there, there's not much in the way of IT. They have satellite internet. It's pretty bandwidth limited, but what we do is try to make sure that they have everything they need to do research, and we support them remotely. So they when a crew is out, and we've had over 1,200 people go through that station. We've been operating it since the year 2001, over 250 crews, and so we every time that they're there, they'll do crew reports at night. They'll report any problems they have, and then we can provide them some remote support. But
And this video we just saw was the Mars VR, which was a Kickstarter. So
yeah,
what's the project? What's the Mars VR?
yeah. So that's a really exciting project. We started it about 3 years ago when we did a Kickstarter to raise $31,000. It's a virtual reality version of our base in Utah. So it's designed to be not only a public outreach tool, and I've shown it at a bunch of different events. Before COVID, I showed it here in Seattle to several hundred underprivileged middle school girls. So public outreach, but also we're going to have training in there so that when the crews are going to go out to Utah, they can actually train in VR before they leave and really understand where everything is and how to do their roles so that they can hit the ground running when they get out there.
Can you think of anything more awesome and more exciting and more like the most more important than the mission to Mars?
No, I really think it is the challenge of our time. And if we can send people to Mars and establish a base there, it would be so inspiring to everyone around the world. It would show people that if you learn science and math and some other skills, you can actually help pioneer a new world. I mean, what bigger, exciting challenge would that be for a young person?
So with 23 years of conventions, with all the top experts coming around, and you organizing the whole thing, pretty much, I guess you heard all the all the presentations, kind of, and
Yeah,
like the argument is that of course we need to understand where life comes from, right? We need to kind of go to Mars and you can't do it with robots. You need to get humans to find fossils and proof of life. Maybe it was billions of years ago was on Mars. So you need to. It's not easy. You can't just get a robot to find a fossil on Earth. So if you can't
No.
even do it on Earth, how are you going to do it on Mars, right?
Yeah, imagine if you were going to go to vacation somewhere, and instead of going yourself, you sent a camera with like a drone with a camera, and it's kind of like looking at all the monuments, and you're watching it on your little screen, versus you actually going there and seeing everything and being able to reach out and touch things and take in the awesomeness of wherever you are. It's like, say you went to the Taj Mahal, you know, would you rather send a drone to the Taj Mahal or go there yourself, right? It's the same with exploring Mars. And, you know, the biggest challenge there with exploring Mars is if we can find life on Mars, that would be such a scientific breakthrough. I mean, that's a question that human beings have been pondering for thousands of years, and we can actually answer it in our time, whether there's life in the universe. And it's right next door to Earth. So, I mean, what bigger scientific discovery could that be?
I actually think it's been like the last few decades, let's say the last couple of decades we were involved, there's probably been a lot of frustration. When I read the book, it was actually kind of like end of the 90s also. The big feeling one gets out of the book and waiting through Bill Clinton and Al Gore doesn't happen, and all these guys, the Bushes and the EU is doing whatever they're doing. China is starting a little bit, and India is talking about stuff, but it's like so much waiting and delays. And 50 years ago, we had better rockets, but now, finally, something's happened, right? This Starship.
Yeah, something's happened. His name's Elon Musk, right?
Yeah.
And Elon was actually one of our members before he started SpaceX. He was on our board, and he wanted to launch a mission to Mars that was a greenhouse mission. And so he like anyone else would do, he went over to Russia and tried to buy an ICBM with the money he'd made from PayPal, but they were very rude to him and they didn't sell him an ICBM. And so he came back and started SpaceX. And what a wild ride SpaceX has been. It's really disrupted the entire airline, the entire aerospace industry, just like the Teslas disrupted the car industry. They're now going to build the Starship, and they're not just building one Starship, they're building a whole fleet of them down in Boca Chica, Texas. And that's going to really open up the solar system, I believe. You're going to be able to use Starship to go build a moon base and start up a Mars colony, and that's going to happen in the next few years, I believe.
I mean, it looks quite good what's happening so far. So I'm really hoping the next steps are going to work out. Like, let's say there's not even need to hope, right? You just have to decide. Humanity has to decide they want to do it, and they'll figure the way to do it, right?
Yeah. So you're showing right now the interview we did with Elon at our conference last year in October, and I was part of that. If you back it up a little bit in the video, you'll see him. He was calling in from the Tesla factory on an iPad to our virtual conference. Over 100,000 people saw that video the first day we had it out. Got picked up by CNET. But what he said on that video was, if there's a will, there's a way. And he said, I'll provide the way. You guys at the Mars Society, you need to help me with the will to go. And that's really the ingredient for success, we believe. I've been involved with this for over 20 years. What really has helped us a lot is the movie The Martian, because it really showed the general public that a mission to Mars is not a science fiction thing. It's a near future mission that's possible with today's technology. And it really is. And governments have had lots of attempts. You mentioned the Clintons, and I was in college when the Mars Pathfinder landed, and that had a huge impact on me. Having the first rover on Mars, it was about the size of a microwave oven, but it showed that faster, better, cheaper missions worked, that you didn't have to have these billion-dollar large multi-year projects to go to Mars and the moon. Now, unfortunately, the aerospace industry moved back that way, and that we have these larger missions going to Mars, like the Mars 2020 rover, which they've been working on for 8 years. But Elon's picked up the ball with faster, better, cheaper, and he's showing us that you can do things like the Falcon 9 and the Crew Dragon and actually pull that off and have it be a sustainable program.
Actually, it was quite awesome. You were part of the second part of the video. You were helping out with the Q&A and all these
Yeah.
questions coming in, and I guess a lot of questions. Or how did you select what to ask?
Yeah, I didn't have a lot of time to prepare for that. I didn't know I was going to do that until about an hour before. And so, and I'm also running the conference. We had a virtual conference that was 4 days long. I was the lead organizer, over 150 speakers, 100 sessions. So right in the smack dab in the middle of that, yeah, you're going to interview Elon Musk. And so we had him on our Zoom call. We had 1,900 people in the room. I had the question and answer panel had 500 questions, and it was me and another volunteer, Carrie Fay from Denver, Colorado, and we were trying to just figure out what the best ones were, trying to represent our membership and the Mars movement the best we could. So I actually did ask him my favorite question, which was, what's the landing site you guys are looking at? And we had a really interesting back and forth dialogue about that, Elon and I. But then we also got to ask him questions from, I think it was an 11-year-old girl, and then several other questions about technology. So it really went very smoothly, but I don't know. I think we just made it look easy. It was not easy.
I guess also, what's it called? I mean, he's such a busy guy. You're not even sure that he's confirming maybe at the last moment if he's able to do it and stuff, right?
Absolutely. We were talking to him for months, and we couldn't confirm that he was going to appear at all at our conference until the morning of the first day. And Dr. Zubrin immediately announced it at his keynote. And then we weren't sure when. We were originally going to have him Saturday night, which is our traditional banquet speaker. That's like our big, long speaker. But he wasn't able to make it then, so we had to squeeze him in the middle of the afternoon. But we did it. We pulled it off, and I was on the phone with the SpaceX staff at the Tesla factory trying to get his iPad working right before. So it was a lot of fun, but we pulled it off.
And so have you been 20 years now in the Mars Society?
Yeah, since the beginning.
So was Elon Musk in the early years? Do you remember if he was there?
He came to our conferences in the early 2000s. So we had a conference in the year 2002 in Boulder, Colorado that he came to. And then he was put on our board as well because he donated some money to us to help us get the Mars Desert Research Station going. We actually have an observatory there that we named after him. It's the Musk Observatory, and it's a robotic observatory. The crews use it, but we also have a side facility that can be operated over the internet. And they're real observatories. We do real astronomy there. The skies are crystal clear out in the Utah desert. So we've taken a lot of great astrophotos, but yeah.
Do you remember that 2002? Was he like doing a presentation there, or was he just a networking?
He was just networking. He's like this guy that was looking for the next big thing he wanted to do. He was talking about a lot of stuff, but he was into Mars, and he wanted to see how he could fit in with the Mars Society. And ultimately, he decided, I'm going to go do my own thing. No offense to you guys. You guys are cool, but I'm just the kind of person that I like to run what I'm doing. Which it's fine. It worked out well for him, and us.
Yeah, but I mean, it's an amazing time. One thing I mentioned in my interview with Robert Zubrin, that the number one and number two richest guys in the world are building the rockets. They are both wanting to go to Mars, right? One seems a little bit more urgently than the other, kind of.
It's very exciting. And I mentioned I worked at Microsoft, and back then Dr. Zubrin was trying to get a meeting with Bill Gates, and I was involved with that. And Bill Gates was not interested in space. At the time he was the richest man in the world. And, he went into like philanthropy and vaccines and trying to cure malaria in Africa, and now COVID, which is great. It's a very altruistic passion, but he's never been interested in space. So it's very exciting now that we have Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, both with space companies that are very successful space companies so far, working on the human landing system for the moon and a reusable rocket of their own called the New Glenn. So don't sleep on them. They're actually doing a lot too. And Jeff Bezos is more of a Gerard K. O'Neill, the human colonies in Earth orbit. He's more of that sort of mindset than colonizing Mars, which is great. We have two billionaires that have slightly different philosophies that are both great for space. So I love it.
And like they're so crazy busy guys with their amazing business and everything, but and usually one thinks that billionaires have to be giving a lot of money to charities, right? To like support. That's what people think, right? But pretty much what they're doing, kind of, it looks like, is that their charity that they're giving back to humanity is building those rockets, because that's kind of like, like they're like replacing NASA a little bit, because kind of, right. Of course, I'm just thinking like this
Yeah.
kind of like because it's so difficult sometimes for them to choose how to pick a charity, how to support what, and how they're going to spend the money and blah blah blah. Well, just build rockets, get to Mars, and then that's kind of like the charity.
I hear what you're saying, but I don't think they're doing it because it's a charity. I think they're doing it because they see a huge business opportunity. I think the space industry is going to be $1 trillion industry in the next 10 years. And they're just the first ones, right? There's a lot of other companies as well that are doing well. I'm watching on the news, there's a company called Momentous that's about to go public through a reverse merger or a SPAC. And there's other companies there's another company that's a mobile space company where it'll actually switch networks on your phone as you're driving because of their satellite technology. So there's actually a lot of space companies, and right now they're focused on rockets and satellites. But in the next 5 to 10 years, they're going to be focused on lunar bases and cislunar economy and stuff in lunar orbit, and then the Mars project, right? Sending people to Mars, starting a permanent colony, and all the things you're going to need for that. None of them have been invented yet.
Yeah, but it's funny. Like yesterday, there was this this whole story on Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos fighting out over building this crazy awesome satellite network covering. They even starting, I think, in your area in Seattle. There's people can buy these, right? If they live out in the woods, they can get access to the Starlink already, and as a beta. And this is going to be huge if they can provide internet to the whole planet. Some people are saying this is a multi-billion-dollar business.
Yeah, I've been following this closely. SpaceX's Starlink constellation is in beta, and it's available in a lot of the northern latitudes. But the story you're mentioning, yeah, they're kind of bickering over the altitude of the satellites and the radio frequency. Amazon is going to build a constellation that's similar, but they're not going to start for a few years. So they're sort of in the design phase, and SpaceX has hardware flying, and they're making operational adjustments. So because they made an operational adjustment that affects the design of Amazon's constellation, Amazon started complaining, and then SpaceX responded. It's kind of funny to watch, but they'll sort it out. And yeah, it's going to be a really important thing for humanity when you have global internet, because you can imagine all the parts of the Earth that aren't yet served by cell phones and wired internet, fiber optics. All those places are going to light up, and you're going to have a whole group of people be able to participate in the global economy that they weren't able to before. So it's going to be huge for the planet.
Of course, there's a couple challenges that I thought about, that I've understood from what people are talking about before. Like, people looking at stars, they don't want to get distracted by these Starlinks that are going all the time. Hopefully, they've solved that with the things they're doing to shade it. And then the other thing is, hopefully there's not too much space debris, like space, it can be dangerous if the satellites collide with each other, or, when humans get up there, if they collide with one of them. And now the other thing that I understood from this article yesterday is that there might be some interference with all the different competitors who want to get up there, right? So if China starts to do their own little Starlink, and everybody starts to, hopefully there's a way that the more people put stuff up, there should be roaming agreements, like you should be able to get from the Starlink to the Amazon, and they can just expand instead of trying to put satellites on top of each other.
That would be tough, because these things are designed to work together in concert, and they have different technologies. But like space debris is a real problem. Like, we need to do something about all the space debris that's up there. There are a couple startups that are trying to work on that problem, where they're trying to deorbit some of those pieces of space debris by launching small satellites to link up with them and then deorbit them. But it's a real problem. Like, if we aren't careful, we could make it so that the whole cloud of debris around the planet makes it hard to do anything, even hard to leave. So yeah, we need to solve that problem and be careful. But they're being responsible about it, I think.
Um, and then you had, was it in October, the convention?
Yes.
And so there's all the videos right there on your YouTube channel. How's it been? Because this was the first time you did the fully virtual online, and
Yeah,
lots of people watching those videos.
it was amazing. Normally we have our conference every year, and normally we're at a location. We were at University of Southern California in 2019. We had about 400 attendees, but last year, because of COVID, instead of canceling our conference, which is what a lot of other space groups did, Dr. Zubrin turned to me and said, James, how are we going to do this as a virtual event? I want this to be a conference like no one's ever seen. I want to do our whole conference online, including all of our track sessions, all of our speakers. Because it's virtual, there'll be people that normally would like to come to our conference but can't travel or aren't able to travel. They'll be able to attend. And all the speakers we want to get, they'll be able to come because it's just a Zoom call that they can do, and we can adjust it around their schedule. So it worked out, and we were able to get everyone we wanted. We got Elon, we got the NASA administrator, Jim Bridenstine, we got every Mars mission represented, and some really great track talks. So as I mentioned, over 100 different individual talks. We put them all up on YouTube because we were using Zoom. It made my job a lot easier because everything got recorded automatically with high quality. And so me and a few volunteers edited the videos and put them up on YouTube. And we had everything done in about 2 weeks, which is a record for us. But it was an amazing event. We had over 10,000 attendees, and we had lots of press about it. I mentioned Elon's video was seen by over 100,000 people in the first hour, about 1 million people in the first week. It was on YouTube. It got picked up by other media outlets like CNET and Space.com. And so, yeah, the conference was really amazing this year. And we're looking forward to this coming year. We'll do either another virtual conference or we'll do a hybrid event where we'll be back at somewhere like USC, but we'll still have that virtual component. And I should mention, one of the things that really made it a success is the software we use. We didn't just use Zoom because we had so many different individual talks. Each one was an individual Zoom call. We had a software called Attendify that would allow people to log in and put a profile up and meet others, and also find all the things on the schedule, all the conference keynotes and track sessions and panels. And they were able to make their own schedule and flip between the talks, and a lot of them watched the conference right in Attendify. So they've been a great partner of us. They featured us on their site a couple weeks ago with a case study, and we're looking forward to using them even if we go back and do an in-person event this year.
Actually, that would be impressive if that was a success. Because in my experience, I used to go to like 10, 20 trade shows a year, and this past year is 0. But with all the virtual conferences I've seen, I don't know if I can just put it bluntly out there, but it just looks to me as if none of these virtual events are really working. Because I don't know, it's just as I've seen this, all these softwares that charge money to do these online things and everything, where people have to go and network and stuff like that. But I think I think video chat and the Zoom stuff has huge potential, right? And if you just have a way for people to get into the Zoom call and start networking, right? And some of that stuff getting recorded, that's already awesome, right?
Yeah, there's groups of people where they're still going to want to be in person. They're still going to want to handshake and talk to people outside of the room and network. And I remember meeting people that I started projects with at the conference that I wouldn't have met otherwise. And so that's harder when it's all virtual. There are ways to do it. We used a tool called Wonder.me to allow people to do ad hoc video chats around a topic, so they can kind of network that way. But I think Zoom fatigue is a real thing. 4 days of our conference, when you're walking around, is one thing. watching it for 4 days on Zoom, it was probably harder for people. And so I think there's still going to be a place for in-person events, but I believe it's going to be a hybrid model. You're going to have people that are online and watching it, but then there's going to be people on site. And how do you meld those two things together? How do you relay questions from people online to the real speakers so they can answer them in real time? That's the kind of stuff I'm going to try to figure out for the next one.
Yeah, and hopefully these tech companies are going to figure things out also. I don't know how high quality you were able to export from Zoom. Hopefully better than what I've been able to figure out. Because when I try to record a couple of Zoom videos, I could only get 360p out of this.
There's some settings better, right? There's some settings in Zoom you can check out to upgrade that. Yeah, it's not in the individual meeting settings. It's in your account.
Maybe it's only in like the business accounts or something like that, the bigger Zoom things, right? Maybe
well, it's pro and up. Yeah, we had pro accounts for the conference, but yeah, it's in there.
All right, but hopefully these companies like Zoom, I guess they have at least 2 or 3 engineers working on this stuff right now.
I hope so. Yeah,
this is like huge. To make things even more streamlined and more interactive and more engaging, and maybe it would make sense to do this kind of like the whole year. Because things have to happen fast. I mean, how crazy is that? We're waiting for the SN9 is going to show some acrobatics soon.
Yeah, hopefully today. Yeah.
Yeah, and like things are happening so fast, right? Maybe waiting for the once a year is too little. What do you think?
We do some other stuff. I'm part of a group called the Mars University, and we're doing a monthly seminar series. We just had one last week. With the CEO of Paragon Space Development Corp. So there are some little space events out there too that you can find that are online to tide you over until the next conference.
Maybe, do you want to screen share just to show a little bit what you might want to show? Like maybe you can show some highlights from the convention, or what would you like to show?
Yeah, I can do that. Let's see, let me pull up the one I was just talking about, which is the Mars U seminar. Pull that one up.
I open your screen there.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, so this is the Mars Society YouTube channel.
This is another group called Mars U that I'm part of that's affiliated with the Mars Society. So we have this one here. Mars University seminar. So I was part of this last week. This is just a monthly one we've been doing. We interviewed the guy from Paragon Space Development Corporation, who's put a lot of hardware on a lot of the different human space flight programs, including the Crew Dragon and the Orion. So he was really an interesting speaker. And then, yeah, I mentioned Elon Musk. We talked to him during the conference, and that was great. Jim Bridenstine. So he was just an amazing speaker, not only because he's the NASA administrator, but just what he said about NASA and the Mars Society and how important the role we have is to galvanize the public for a humans to Mars mission. He was very effusive in his praise of us during that talk, so I would definitely watch that. I was part of getting this set up with his staff at NASA headquarters.
What's been your opinion on the whole Trump 4-year Jim Bridenstine kind of NASA? Some people are saying that it's been positive. I mean, it's not like giving him credit for the whole SpaceX, let's say, but they're like supporting it, and they're placing orders, right? They're buying launches, and they're like paying for hopefully more Falcon Heavies or something like that, right? This is what the NASA budget should do.
Right. Yeah, I think Jim Bridenstine was a great NASA administrator. I'm sad that he's no longer there because he was a Trump appointee, and when Biden came in, they usually will resign when the new administration comes in. He was great. We actually, Dr. Zubrin and him met before he became NASA administrator when he was a congressman many times. He actually gave out Dr. Zubrin's book to every member of Congress for us. And so he was a huge supporter of us, and I think he did a fantastic job as NASA administrator.
That was years before, right?
It was a couple years before, yeah, like
before Trump, right?
Yeah.
So he gave the book around to try to convince Congress
about a humans to Mars mission, yeah. And then when Trump came in, Trump had the goal of going back to the moon by 2024, And Jim Bridenstine really rallied NASA to go figure that out. Now, the one thing I would fault him on is they didn't cancel SLS, and they're still messing around with the Lunar Gateway, which I think is a little bit of a boondoggle, both of those projects. SLS might be obsolete before it even flies because of what Elon is doing. But otherwise, NASA is really on the right track. I mean, back in the Clinton era, we were talking about earlier, NASA wasn't even allowed to research going to Mars with humans. Like, that was taboo. And when the George W. Bush came in and they had a moon goal, then they started going towards Mars, but they really weren't serious about it until Obama. And then when Obama was president, they were focused on Mars, but they didn't really have a near-term goal, which also isn't helpful. If you say your goal is to send humans to Mars, but it's not going to happen in the next 8 years, no one takes that seriously. So I'm hopeful that Biden will have a big goal in his first year, like Trump did, and that focuses NASA to go do big things smartly.
Like he just needs to do a little speech, and maybe Robert Zubrin can help to write it. And he just needs to stand there, like Joe Biden, and I think it would be so, like, of course it has to be put in the right context or something like that, because they're talking about jobs is the most important thing. Education is huge. Science is super important. They talk about renewables and global warming stuff. It's like a big priority. So somebody should maybe like put it in there and say, hey, let's go to Mars because we're going to develop technologies that are going to be useful for the whole renewable stuff.
Well, the best way to understand Earth and climate change is to look at other planets, to look at comparative science of how planets work. And Earth, Venus, and Mars are all very similar. Mars used to be warm and wet back millions of years ago. So figure out how it lost it. Venus used to be cooler. Now it's this hellish, really hot, sulfuric atmosphere. But it used to be a little bit more like Earth. So figure that out too, right? And I agree with you. Like, if we could write Biden's speech and maybe Kamala is standing next to him, and they're talking about, we're going to send the first woman to the moon first to train for Mars. Kamala, you want to go? And she'd be like, yes, I'd love to go. Biden also has a moon rock in the Oval Office. I don't know if you saw that when his staff redecorated the Oval Office recently for him to come in. They have a moon rock on the shelf now. That's a signal to us that he takes space seriously. And I love what they're saying about science. I mean, I completely agree. Science is super important. A lot of the problems we've seen in the U.S. the last couple of years were because people weren't paying attention to science and had misconceptions about science in a lot of ways. So I love that they have that focus, and they've also elevated the science advisor to a cabinet position. So
I don't know if Jim Bridenstine is a scientist or if he's a politician, but definitely the scientist should be in charge. Not just for the NASA stuff, but for like in general, if you get more scientists in charge, usually things are going to turn out better, right? So maybe hopefully, I don't know if they are talking about who's going to be the next NASA person.
Yeah, they are. There's a few candidates out there, so we'll see.
Is Robert Zubrin one of the candidates?
Unfortunately, not.
Why?
Well, he's got a lot of opinions. I don't think he'd mesh very well with the traditional aerospace industry.
Is he too busy? Maybe he's too busy with other stuff, or what?
He's a little busy, yeah. He's doing some stuff at his company. So
come on, that would be so easy. Just pick the right person. Pick the right person, and get of course, stuff is happening. SN9, SN10, SN15. One of these next few weeks. Maybe this will be the right time to say, hey, this looks really good. The Starship is coming along. Let's place an order. Just place an order for like a bunch of rockets.
I think they will. I think they'll have, when Starship is demonstrated, they'll have some type of program with NASA where NASA's purchasing them for sure. But we'll be part of the moon program. I believe that. But, I would dispute a little bit. I definitely agree with you that science is important and that we should have more scientists running things. And certainly that's happening in the health arena in the U.S. now. But what was great about Jim Bridenstine, he wasn't a scientist, he was a congressman. And before that, he was in the military. Him his biggest scientific job was he ran an Air and Space Museum in Tulsa, which actually did help him run NASA. There were some skills he developed there, but he was a good NASA administrator because one of their jobs is to talk to Congress and get funding. And he was very good at that. He was very good at talking to both sides of the aisle in Congress and building support. And there haven't been a lot of NASA administrators that had those skills. Like the best one before him was James Webb, which was one of the first NASA administrators. And so I would actually look for them to do some sort of political person, because they would be more apt to build those relationships with Congress and get funding for the programs. But have some deputies that are science people for sure.
Okay, but because I mean, things might be happening pretty fast right now, and like one thing I was trying to ask Robert Zubrin, but it seems like he was very much against, or I don't know if it's very much or not, but the argument is that competition is required. But I'm thinking a little bit like, what if like the big tech and Jeff Bezos and the Googles and the Apple, Facebook, if they all collaborated and say, okay, how many billions do we need? How many starships are required? And what else can we do to make it work? Because there's so much, you don't only need the heavy lift, you need everything that goes inside, right? Everything that they talk about.
All the hardware to do the base hasn't been invented yet. There's all these projects and companies that are going to be formed to utilize the Starship once it's up and running, once it's operational. You know, there's no company to build life support inside moon bases or rovers on the moon. I mean, maybe Tesla will work on that, but yeah, there's a whole set of technologies and hardware that needs to be invented still, and there's a whole set of companies that are going to come along and do that.
So maybe it would make sense that they would kind of like there needs to be competition, but maybe there's a way to collaborate and compete at the same time, and maybe also collaborate with China and collaborate.
Co-opetition.
Yes, some kind of smart mix of that, and like because Elon Musk is talking about 2024, 2026.
Yep.
I mean, how amazing would that be if that actually happens? That would be.
I mean, a lot of people, I asked him about some of those dates when I interviewed him. A lot of people don't believe those dates because they're like, oh, whatever, Elon's always optimistic. But I think those are pretty grounded in reality. I mean, they're making pretty good progress down there in Boca Chica with the Starship. I believe they'll be able to fly it around the moon in a couple years. And I think Mars is not that far off once you get that mission done. So, yeah, it's coming fast and furious for sure.
Nice. And would you like to talk about some of the other projects you're doing? What kind of what's your is not your full-time job, right? The Mars Society. You also doing?
No, I'm a volunteer. It's a hobby of mine to help out the Mars Society. I work on it most of the time, nights and weekends. The VR project is one of my big focuses. We're going to do another crowdfunding campaign to support that, to try to get our first public release done.
How soon?
We're going to start the crowdfunding in about a month. And just watch our site, marsvr.com, as well as the Mars Society's main site, and we'll be signing people up for that. I'm also interested in cryptocurrency, and so I'm part of the Mars Coin project. I don't know if you've ever heard of that one, Mars Coin.
What is the Mars Coin?
Well, it's just like Bitcoin, but it's for Mars. And it's the whole idea is the blockchain, right? Because the reason why cryptocurrencies work is it's a public ledger. There's no way to counterfeit the money. The transactions are all public. Sometimes they're anonymized, but there's a ledger of all the transactions, and that's called the blockchain. And you can actually do a lot of different other things with the blockchain besides financial transactions. For example, you could use the blockchain if you had a piece of fruit. You could track where that fruit was grown, where it went to the warehouse, where it went to the grocery store, and then came to you. You'd have that history all tied to that. Using the blockchain, if all that infrastructure was up and running. So we'd like to do stuff like that on Mars, where when you go ahead and create some resource on Mars, like say you're going to suck in the Martian air, carbon dioxide, and react it with some hydrogen and make rocket fuel and make methane, tag that with the blockchain so that you know where that was generated, and when it's sold, you can also put information about those transactions in there. you can have a whole economy around the blockchain on Mars. And so the Mars Coin project, which is just kind of a fun project, it's a fork of Bitcoin. It's basically a copy of Bitcoin. And you're able to purchase that. It's not trading for as much as Bitcoin. Bitcoin's like $31,000 now. Mars Coin's a few cents. But it's an interesting project, and it's something I've been involved with since 2014 when it started. And the founder has spoke at our conference. He's a huge supporter of the Mars Society. And that project donated a bunch of these Mars coins to the Mars Society when it started. So we're definitely interested in it being successful. If it makes the Mars Society a billionaire organization, then Mars colonization can happen a lot faster.
Yeah, maybe. When you talk about big tech, there are like trillions and trillions of dollars of market cap. Mm-hmm. And I think it would be nice if some kind of Google or somebody did a digital kind of currency, but based on their stock price or something like that, or based on their real, like just micro shares in the company or something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe SpaceX could do that, like based on their.
Issuing stock is another way that you could use the blockchain. And that's something that I haven't seen a public company do that yet, because there's not a lot of regulations in the US around that yet, but those are coming, and that would be a great application, because you could, for the share of stock you have, even if it was a fractional share, you could see the full history of it and how it changed hands, just by looking at its record on the public ledger.
SpaceX is a private company, right?
It is, yes.
But maybe they could be just, instead of going public the normal way, they could do with all this strange stuff that Elon Musk is tweeting about how people are tricking the NASDAQ or some of these the stock market, like in the Reddit things and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's just something completely different. But do you have also other stuff you're doing? Like, what's your people?
Yeah.
What's your?
So we have chapters around the world. The Mars Society does. I lead the Seattle chapter, and so we've been doing Zoom events every month. Talk to local members. We would do public outreach at different events. So that being a chapter and participating in that is another way to be part of the Mars Society and meet folks that
all over the world, right?
All over the world, absolutely.
Pretty much every country of it. Most mm-hmm. countries. Yep. And they do stuff locally in each country.
They do. They usually, a lot of them will look for local space events, and then they'll go represent themselves there, have a table, talk to people. So that's another way that we do public outreach.
Is there a platform for that? Is like meetups, or what kind of thing?
We use Meetup and Facebook for a lot of that, yeah.
And so there's probably like a Facebook group for each country, and people can go and join and find other Mars interested people.
Start by going to chapters.marssociety.org, and I'll pull that site up too. Yeah. But that's where you can find your local chapter. If there isn't one in your area, you can start one. That's the site, chapters. And there's the map there, so you can see, for example, over in France, there's Association Planet Mars.
Nice. And then there's a link right there.
Yeah, there's the website link right there, and some of these will have a Facebook page as well. So,
is that a Chinese group on Facebook?
Yeah, we have a pretty large chapter in China.
Right, but Facebook they're using VPN to get onto it.
That's the U.S. focused Facebook group. They have their own stuff in China on some other social media there.
All right, cool.
So then one other project I wanted to mention, Mars Pedia. We have an online encyclopedia that's free and public domain. And so that's something that anyone can help out with. We want this to be a really great resource for schools and for young people to learn about Mars.
Nice. So there's a lot of information there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have volunteer editors that work on this. You can see there's an article there about the rover, the Perseverance rover that's going to land in a month. And actually in just about February 18th is when it lands. So, but yeah, there's all kinds of information on here. You can go to the Mars Atlas area. You can learn all about the locations on Mars. All the different areas are represented there. So check this out. It's a free resource. We've been working on this for a couple years now. And if you want to help us out, there's ways to do that as well.
Have you been using these? I don't know if it's just trajectory kind of apps or if it's also about visualizing and kind of like a Google Earth of Mars. But are these apps and stuff that have you played around with those, or are people very active with that, or do you know?
Yeah, Google Earth has a Mars view. I've played around with that a bit. There's another one called Celestis that's kind of like a solar system simulator. I've played around with that. We'd like to do stuff like that. Eventually, I'd like to have a VR atlas of Mars and be able to kind of look at the globe in VR and zoom in and out, but then go all the way down to the surface and walk around. That would be technically possible because there's altimeter data for the entire globe of Mars. And so,
how are people going to add content to the Mars VR? Because it'd be nice if there's a way to add a whole bunch of new, like, the world needs to expand, kind of like a little bit like Minecraft or something like that. Or how would you?
Yeah, we're thinking about how to do that. It is going to be an open source project. We're going to have it up on GitHub, Mars VR, and so there will be ways for people to contribute 3D models. And one of the things we'd like to do eventually is have all the different Mars-based designs, Mars colony designs in the app, and you can kind of scroll through them and walk around and see what they're like in VR.
And people can just boom, and they can be on Mars, right?
That's right.
And they can meet other people.
Yeah, eventually, multi-user scenarios are something we also want to work on this year, and have it be a chat room where you can actually talk to people, walk around the Mars base, talk to someone else in real time.
I just saw yesterday a quite interesting article about the Sundance Film Festival. They have some company that's doing something for them that's, like where you said you're using a platform for the thing, but they actually have a VR platform. So people are optionally, you can also do it just on normal computer monitor, but they're entering the networking area for the Sundance Film Festival. Maybe next year for the Mars convention, you might be able to have it working where people, boom, they can actually they can network on Mars, and they can, do you want to hang out on my base, on my
exactly.
Something like that.
I would love to have stuff like that. It just takes a bunch of work and volunteers and funding to pull that off, but it's possible.
Maybe there's a platform you could get into that's kind of like based on the Unreal Engine or one of these engines that kind of like people can just add 3D information to it. And
we do use Unity as our platform, and it is a pretty popular one. That's why we chose that to develop our Mars Desert Research Station models with. But VR development is pretty challenging overall. We are looking at a multi-user platform as well called Pluto. They're a startup here in Seattle. So yeah, we're definitely thinking of these questions.
And if people are interested to work on that and help you with that or work, they can contact. And
yeah, MarsVR.com is our site, MarsVR.com.
And it's going to be open source.
It's going to be open source, yes.
So anybody can just contribute, do stuff. I guess it's so much other, like, how many presentations were there in the last convention?
Over 100.
So that's a lot of different topics.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of research happening, and we try to get a lot of it represented at our conferences. We've had our conference now up on YouTube for about 10 years. So we have over 1,000 videos up there. It's quite a library of videos that you can sift through. And all kinds of aspects of Mars exploration and settlement, all the technologies represented, politics. You can see there's the city-state design contest we did. That was a design contest for a 1 million-person settlement. And that's the second contest we've done in the last 2 years. We also had a Mars colony design contest. We were blown away by all the submissions we got. Very, very well done designs for the city-state designs, which are 1 million person, and then the Mars colonies for 1,000 or less. Yeah, and there's the Mars helicopter, the JPL. That's part of the Perseverance rover that's landing next month, and that's going to fly a small helicopter on Mars. Very exciting, little helicopter drone.
So actually, all these JPL NASA teams from all the different robotic missions, they have all presented in this or previous conventions, right? So you've been talking with all the kind of like project managers, and all these guys have been there, right?
The project managers, the principal investigators, the leads, people that work in academia that support them. Yeah, we've had a lot of really high quality speakers, and they bring their PowerPoint decks and their videos and tell us all about their their work, and it's really amazing to watch.
It was a little bit weird, no, the Space Force. I like
Yeah,
the Netflix show.
I watched the Netflix show. I wouldn't say I liked it, but I watched it.
I like it. I think it's great. But so there's Space Force, which I don't know what's happening with that, but
It's
maybe.
basically, I mean, what Space Force is to me is they took all the stuff that was in the Air Force related to space and put it in a separate branch, and it's kind of a bureaucratic just reorganization so far. It's not like they're building new futuristic fighter like spacecraft and have guys in uniforms that are going to patrol the skies with them. They're not there yet, although they might be eventually, but it's more just looking at our satellites, how to defend them, how to make sure that we have good communications for the military. GPS is kind of aging, so they're focused on things like that right now. The one cool project they do is the NASA's X-37B. That's like a mini space shuttle. They have these year-long missions that does. That it's pretty secretive. Not really. A lot of people wonder what it's actually doing, but it could be doing reconnaissance. It could be doing testing of technologies, but Space Force runs that now, so that's their one sort of space mission that they're doing on their own.
Nice, but I mean, there's so much content, so much networking that can be done, and the Mars Society is definitely providing a platform for that. And I guess it's been an amazing last 20 years, but you can only imagine what will happen in the next 10 years, even the next
Well,
5 years.
yeah, I mean, Elon says he'd like to retire on Mars. I'm right there with him. I hope a lot of us get to retire on Mars, and all these people that you're scrolling through here that I recognize their names, friends of mine, that we all live together on Mars someday and are pioneering a new planet. That's the future of the Mars Society, I think.
Uh, yeah, so there's a lot of potential to understand more about the science, about where life comes from, but also to just explore even more, right? Like maybe from there go to other planets and develop
Yeah, because
huge society there.
because once you're able to go to Mars easily with a Starship or hardware like that, then there's a lot of other interesting destinations in the solar system. I mean, I saw an article just recently that they were talking about building a space station around Ceres in the asteroid belt, just like in the Expanse. They'd have a big space station in Ceres that's doing things like mining water and looking for different science there. But that might be a better way to host a lot of people than Mars, the surface of Mars. And then there's the moon of Saturn called Titan. We're going to send a mission there in the next few years as well that hops around on the planet and explores more of it. I mean that's basically an early Earth. And it's a methane atmosphere, but very much suitable for a colony to be on, a human colony. And I'd love to have a crew go there someday to Titan. And there's other great places too, like Europa. I mean, you ever see the movie 2001, 2010? They found life on Europa. You know, that could be in our future too. There's a whole water ocean, and figure that out. And Saturn's got a moon like that called Enceladus. It's very similar to Europa. So there's lots of stuff to explore in the solar system, all the way out to Pluto. I'd love to go to Pluto. That's a cool planet. I'd love to land on that big heart.
Nice. And like this amazing Hubble Space Telescope is having some issues, but I mean, it's amazing to think what it's been able to do, and it's 25 years old or something like that. So
Yeah.
just to imagine what the Starship can bring up there, that might be new generation of telescope. Like Robert Zubrin was saying that actually that might be the way we will maybe see uh, aliens, because we will maybe see proof that they've gone from one planet to the other, right?
Yeah, and the James Webb Space Telescope that should be launching soon. That's able to look at some of these exoplanets with very high resolution. You know, the best place to do astronomy though is the far side of the moon. Like that's really the place to build a telescope at, because you'd be completely shielded from all the interference on Earth. You wouldn't have any false positives if you're listening, if you're doing radio astronomy like the SETI program does. That would be the quietest place and crystal clear skies on the far side of the moon. So that's really the place to go. For me, that's the number one argument of why to do a moon base is to do astronomy there.
That's awesome. Okay, let's go. That's awesome. So it does make sense, this whole moon talk,
Absolutely.
in that way. Maybe also it's maybe a little bit more, let's say, reasonable distance and time for people who want to just go on holiday, right?
Yeah, the moon's
Holiday on the moon. It's just a
3
couple
days
weeks.
away. It's a great week vacation. You go 3 days up, you spend a day or two on the moon, you come back, and you have a great story to tell about your lunar vacation.
3 days is a little bit longer than some. I mean, some people do fly for 24 hours. They do stopovers. Like sometimes when I fly to the U.S. from Europe,
Mhm.
I have to stop somewhere
Yeah.
on the way, and there's like the whole trip is 24 hours, so it's not much longer.
No, in cross
Get to the
country
moon.
driving, when I drive to Florida from here, that takes 5 days, 7 days. So, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
so the
it's
moon is
doable.
really a good tourist destination potential.
Absolutely.
But Mars is
Mars is the future.
happening, and
Mars is where you could actually build a whole branch of civilization because you have everything you need there for people to live and thrive. You can build plastics, you can build electronics, you can do rocket fuel, there's a lot of water everywhere, you can get oxygen from that. So Mars has more resources to build a civilization than the moon does. The moon's a little resource scarce, but because it's so close to Earth, you just can import that stuff from Earth.
It's fun to jump around on the moon.
Yes.
Uh, and there's no atmosphere. You see the stars. It's like this is also crazy, I guess. But what's next? Can you give a little bit of a behind the scenes? What do you think is the impressions people have when they're watching the SN8, SN9 from all the people inside the Mars Society? What has been your reaction? How are you following this stuff?
I'm glued to it. It's pure thrill to watch the Starship project. I mean, it's stuff we've been working towards for 20 years, and someone's actually doing it in a very innovative way. They're rapid prototyping. They're failing fast, which is good. You want to do your failures quickly, not over multiple years. And so it's extremely exciting to watch. I'm just glued to every mission that every launch that SpaceX attempts. With the Starship, but also the Crew Dragon was amazing. Being able to reestablish our capability to go to the ISS with the Crew Dragon and the Falcon 9. Those missions are so exciting as well. The Falcon Heavy, that was amazing when the Falcon Heavy launches. Those couple times, I was at work and I had people all around me watching it live when the first one launched. And when those two rockets landed back on Earth, the two side boosters, that was an incredible moment.
I was actually emotional when I saw this Falcon Heavy.
Absolutely.
It was like, whoa. And the Starship is just, let's see what happens. Maybe there was some fog yesterday. I don't know what's happening with this status today, but one of these days, hopefully they land it, or even if they don't, they figure out how to land it soon.
Yeah, I mean, SN8 was a pretty flawless flight except for the landing. So if they stick the landing on SN9, then they're on their way.
And then we need to see the heavy part of see how they
have the Super Falcon, the booster part. That's really going to be something to see when that takes off. That's a big rocket.
I guess I'm hoping that everything gets smooth because they have 3 of these Raptors, right? But they need to get 28 or something. So hopefully they find a way to that everything is stable when you have so many Raptor engines.
Well, that's an incredible engine design, and it's the most powerful engine ever built. Now, the Merlin was the most powerful engine ever built on the Falcon 9, but this is a whole upgrade, a whole generation newer than that. And so, I think the SN8 had like 2 of them or 3,
right?
3. Having 20 of those is going to be amazing.
Yeah, but I hope that that everything is smooth when they get it to that. And that
they're doing engineering the right way. They're testing, they're doing a lot of computer models, so I'm pretty confident they'll figure it out once they do some test launches.
Cool. So awesome. So hopefully soon there'll be like viewing parties instead of everybody watching. But it's cool to watch by oneself at home, and it's also cool. But maybe in a few months, like when things get even more and more crazy, and when they launch nearly once a week, or more than once a month, and they get to the next and stuff at the end of 2021. This is going to be like I can imagine nearly stadiums full of Mars fans just screaming in front,
Yes.
like like when there's a World Cup football and
Hmm.
everybody's screaming in front of the screen. It's going to
Yeah.
be more of this stuff. I think a little bit like what happened in 1969, where everybody was going crazy in the streets and watching TVs everywhere.
Yeah,
But
that's in our future. When we start launching people on those rockets, it's going to be like just like that.
I think actually YouTube should be live streaming the whole Mars mission in 4K if there's enough bandwidth to although
Yeah.
Mars, and that I think it's going to be the biggest show ever. It's going to be bigger than anything, bigger than
Oh
10
yeah.
times bigger than the what do you call this the Super Bowl.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Yeah,
they
especially when it
this
lands
way.
on Mars. Yeah, everyone's going to be glued to the TV watching that.
So they could monetize it just with YouTube ads. That's what I'm thinking. YouTube should be one of the logos on the rocket, and they should just give them 10 billion. I think that's one of the ways this could happen, be funded. Cool. All right. So thanks a lot for giving an
Yeah.
update.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thanks a lot for having me.
Cool. And looking forward to a crazy next future with more and more stuff coming out of the Mars Society uh, and all the Mars fans around the world.
Yeah, and please watch our progress. Follow us on marssociety.org and on all the social media channels, and join us and start a chapter and be part of the movement to send people to Mars.
You also send on the Twitter and the Facebook. You update those.
Yep, we're on all those. We're trying to figure out TikTok too right now, so we'll be on there soon.
Cool. All right. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot.